Hey everyone, thank you once again for joining us. I'm Jennifer Blum, founder and director of the Help Save Foundation. And as always, I'm here with my friend Sherry Pettipass, which I always want to say it like that. So that's why I said it like that this
Bring
time.
it on.
I think about it every time. I'm like, I just want to say Pettipass.
Go ahead.
Anyway, okay, so welcome to week 10 of our Facebook Live podcast on domestic violence. Last week, we gave some helpful tips and information regarding how to implement policies and protocols in the workplace around domestic violence. Please feel free to check out this and any other videos posted on our Facebook and our YouTube channels, which I love this, Sherry. Please go check out her YouTube channel and subscribe. Stigma ends here. Before we get started today, let's remind everyone of some very important emergency phone numbers. The National Domestic Violence Hotline is 1-800-799-7233. And of course, you can always text HOME to 741-741. In case of emergency, we ask, as always, that you call 911. And in addition, you can reach either one of us through the Help Save Foundation, or you can reach Sherry through Stigma Ends Here. This week, we're going to be talking about how to gain control of your thoughts in your life, not just with domestic violence, but in general. We got a lot of crazy stuff going on right now. And, you know, sometimes we're going to veer from the domestic violence just because we see everything that's going on and it kind of all ties into one another anyway. But today we're going to talk about something that is very, very passionate to Sherry, and I'm going to hand it over to you.
Okay, thank you. Hey everyone. So I'm going to begin today. I know Jen already mentioned what we're going to talk about, but I'm going to begin and I'm going to end today's video with things that I have control over, you have control over, and we all have control over. And this is just a reminder that there are more things in our lives that we can control versus what we cannot. So I'm just going to list 5 right off the top of my head. What I eat, when I go to bed, who I spend time with, and the reverse, which is also very important, who I don't spend time with, and my thoughts. You know, I ended with the last one for a reason. Our thoughts cause us more distress than anything else. And I'm going to come back to this later in the podcast, but no, I use the term distress versus stress for a reason. As we have discussed numerous times in our prior podcasts, many survivors of domestic violence have had years where another person was controlling every aspect of their lives. How do you even begin to take back even an ounce of control? So first, and this is my first for today, that this doesn't matter, mean that anything that I'm saying has to be done in any particular order, okay? So first, give yourself permission to consider that there may be a different future and outcome for yourself than what you previously had been made to think and feel. Just like hear that, giving yourself permission to again think about what life could potentially be like for yourself, a different future than what someone's been consistently telling you is not going to happen over and over again. And then you want to make a list of what you want your life to be like if there were no constraints, no physical, mental, or monetary barriers. What picture do you see? In therapy, we call this the quote-unquote miracle question. You know, do you want to go back to school? Do you want your own apartment? Do you want a house, excuse me? Do you want a dog? Do you want to take a yoga class, an art class? Do you want to travel? Do you want to reconnect with people that you are forbidden to see or speak to? Just consider that at this point, you can do anything that you want. And it is hard, I know, to consider that. But that's why we say just make a list, just write things down. Again, having something tangible can make a huge difference. Besides the obvious, when we talk about obviously people being in a domestic violence relationship, there's a lot of reasons why they were unable to do the things that they wanted to do, or even think beyond that and think there was a possibility. But besides that, just now you make a list, you know, of what had gotten in the way in the past and what continues to get in the way now. Of you doing those things that we just talked about. Why are you not taking a yoga class? You know, what is getting in the way of you getting your own place? Again, I mentioned getting a dog. What stops you from getting an animal? This is also, you know, when we're making these lists and doing these things, why counseling can be a key factor in regaining control of your life. Not only is the act of engaging in counseling itself empowering, but this is where you can begin to truly make and prioritize goals and strategize how to reach them. This list is not to put pressure on you. So any of the lists that we're talking about, it's not to now you have something and you have to do this. It's just to start having an awareness that possibly the things getting in your way are things that you do have control over. But again, like I said, they're now tangible, and it's not just a concept that is overwhelming and paralyzing you into not taking any steps towards your goal. So
So
next,
I
go
want to
ahead.
interject there for a second, just from my standpoint. So the list is very important, and I actually had a list before I even got away of all the things that I wanted and wanted for my children that I wasn't able to have. And for so long, I kept being told that, you know, I was worthless. I wasn't going to make any money. You know, no one, I was never going to make anybody happy. I was going to be alone for the rest of my life. And so mentally, I had made a list. And then because of therapy, physically, I had made a list. And it actually empowered me to realize that those were the things that I could do, even though I had been told for so many years I was never going to be able to do any of those things. And my biggest barrier was Brian, because he was the person that was not going to let me do any of those things. Just for me, just being able to support myself and the boys by myself was a huge goal of mine that I literally was told forever, because he financially controlled everything and he controlled where I worked and how I spent money. I never ever thought that I was going to be at a point where I could actually physically support both the boys and myself without help from anybody. And once I started reviewing what I had there and realizing that I could actually accomplish these goals. I could go back to school. I could start a career on my own. I could financially support my children. I could live on my own without having to live at my mom's house to get back on my feet. Once I started to realize all those things, it pushed me to actually act on all of those things. So I talk a lot, just in my work in general, about lists and how important it is to put pen to paper. Because once you put pen to paper, you've actually made a commitment. And once you've made that commitment, it's so much easier to follow through with it than to just think about it over and over again. It's like when you're preparing for your week, right? I try to prepare for my week on Sunday. I have a list of all the things I want to do for the entire week, whether it's work related, child related, goal related. I still have a list every single week of the things that I want to accomplish. And it feels so good every single day, every single week, when I can check off most, if not everything, that I wanted to accomplish that week. But again, those goals are on paper. And by putting them on paper is where you've actually made a commitment. And you're far more likely to succeed by making that commitment than by just thinking it all the time. Because we, as you know, our mind screws us up more than anything else. So I just wanted to interject there.
No, you're absolutely right. And when you have those goals, again, you can then break them down even further. So it's, as I mentioned, this isn't to overwhelm people and say, oh, now I have this whole list of stuff and how am I supposed to get through this? It's to say, like I said, that's why we call it the miracle question. If there was nothing in the way, what would you see? How would you see your life? What are all the things that you would like to see for yourself? If you do have children, for your children, for other members of your family, again, maybe family members that you haven't been able to see for a variety of reasons. So all of those things, when you start putting them on paper, those are the large goals. But then part of this whole process is then stopping and looking at the barriers. What has gotten in the way, what is getting in the way, and then looking at what now we have to break this down even smaller. So just using the example of getting a place to live, like obviously there's a lot of things that need to go into that, not just finding a place, looking at your finances and saying, okay, now what do I have put away and what do I need to save and how do I go about this? And so, there's, again, small goals that you need to reach in order to get there, but it happens. And maybe the next step in wanting, again, I'm going to go back to the dog. So you want a dog. So maybe having your own place is how you're going to do that. And so there's setting that up and getting a place ready to have an animal, whatever kind of animal. And that may seem like a small thing, like what's my fixation with the animal? But it's just that, again, like, what if you've been told for years you can't have one? Again, let's just taking back simple things that you want in your life. This is now your life and you get to choose. So if that's what you want, how do we figure a way for you to have that? Because whatever's gotten in the way before, we're going to remove that. And, if the physical barriers are not there anymore, a lot of times, again, as Jen is saying, it's the mental barriers that are getting in the way, and we need to remove those. So that's actually what we're going to go to next is, controlling your thinking. And how do we do that? And this does fit with everything. Jen was right. There's so many things going on right now, with I know COVID seems to be such a threat, but this is why we started this in the first place, because of COVID. And, and that has affected so many different aspects of people's lives, and the worries and the fears of schools opening up, and the worries and fears of being around your family and doing things and all of that. And that's just one main issue in people's lives. And there's so many others, but so how do we start taking control of our thoughts, and therefore our actions? And one of the big ways, I have to tell you, is to stop using the word stress. And I just did a video on this, so I'm not going to get into it too much because I'm not trying to be repetitive. If you're interested, I do encourage you just to check out the YouTube channel, because I did just do a whole thing on control and this particular word and why it is just such an ineffective term to use on a day-to-day basis. And I hear people do it all the time. But, stress is a feeling of emotional or physical tension. Stress is just a general term for feelings that we might not be ready to address. Things like fear, anger, frustration, sadness. That's what we're talking about. So when we say I'm stressed, what we really mean is something else. And we need to be able to label those feelings so we can start to address them and take control over whatever is causing them. But only if those feelings are actually causing distress. So I just want to be very clear about that all of those feelings I mentioned are very natural feelings. We're not going to live only feeling joy and happiness and peace. And I think we all know that. But when those feelings of fear or anger or sadness disrupt our day-to-day living, that's when it's a cause for concern, okay? And that's why I want to be just very clear on that. So when I talk about these things, I don't want people to think or feel like I'm trying to say like you're not, that anger or any of those things are not natural feelings, because of course they are. It's just a matter of that when it becomes, again, a problem, when it becomes something that you're noticing, again, is really disrupting your life, that's when we need to address it. And I'm going to give you just one tool today, I hope anyway, that you can take away with you to really start working on how to take back control of your thinking. And again, when I say it's not just your thinking. Your thinking truly affects your behavior. Your thinking, your behavior, and your emotions are so intertwined. And sometimes we don't acknowledge that. And I just want to be also clear on something else. Like, I can give this information, and I try to be very cautious about all the things I say, because, I'm not trying to do a therapy session. I just want to give you some information, and I hope that if there's something that I'm giving you is useful, that's great. Again, like Jen and I have always said, if there's questions, we really welcome them, because as we're throwing things out there to you guys, I know that it's brief, but we're open. So please, I can't say this enough when we're doing this stuff, like, please ask. Like, I would be more than happy to go into more about this. So the one thing I want to leave you with today is what's called reality testing. And honestly, this is for everybody. Reality testing is literally exactly what it says. It's testing the reality of your thoughts that seem to be affecting your behavior that are usually not in a positive way. It's recognizing the difference between internal and the external world, excuse me. So in other words, it's just the ability to see a situation for what it really is, rather than what one hopes or fears it might be. So I'm just going to give you some examples. So you walk into work in the morning and you're there first. You say good morning to your boss and you get no reaction. So you have this automatic thought, my boss hates me. Okay. So let's stop for a second. Maybe the reality is she didn't hear you. Could have been the most simple thing. Maybe the reality is she's preoccupied. You have no idea what happened on the way into work. You have no idea what she's thinking about in that moment. Nothing. So to make an assumption like that, is that a rational thought that this person hates you? For what reason? Did you guys have a huge fight? And again, and even if you did have a huge fight, there's still a reason for that. It's not just that she said, she hates my guts. Something happened, and you can discuss that and you can rectify that. But simply because someone doesn't say hi to you in the morning shouldn't be an automatic thought that this person hates you. And this happens all the time with people. And texting is one of those things, right, that happens. Texting is probably one of the worst ways to miscommunicate things with people. You know, a friend doesn't text you back, or text you back and it's really, really abrupt, or not abrupt, excuse me, like it's a one-word answer, and all of a sudden it's like, okay, I just told you all of this stuff, and that's all you say is okay. Automatic assumption, okay, obviously no matter what I say, it's just not important, or she doesn't really care about me. Really? How about maybe she's busy? How about all of a sudden, right as you sent that text, she read it and her child just fell on the floor. You know what? You have no idea. And so we have to stop making those assumptions, and again, test the reality. And so let me bring that back. So with the friend thing, again, that's another one. What happened between the two of you that suddenly you decided that this person doesn't care about you? Has anything happened? Have they ever shown you in your relationship, in your friendship, that they don't care about you? If you say no to those things, then the reality is it's probably none of those things. Something else probably happened. And that happens in relationships when we assume if someone doesn't get back to us, they must be cheating, you know, things like that. So again, the reality is, if this person I'm in a relationship with has never broken trust with me, has never given me reason to not trust them, why now have I decided that I can't believe, like, this one time they haven't texted me back, all of a sudden that must be because they're cheating on me, and I don't trust them. Stop for a second, ask the questions. What is truly probably the reality? Maybe they're wherever they're supposed to be, and maybe they're in the middle of a conversation.
Maybe they don't have service.
Maybe they don't have service. Maybe not everybody needs to be on their phone all day. Truth be told, when I was working at the jail, I hadn't had access to my phone for 8 hours. Imagine if people thought, well, if they went this route that people do, they must think I am a disrespectful, rude person because I wasn't getting back to people for 8 hours a day because I didn't have my phone. Like, so the truth is, like, we automatically love to go to the negative, but I understand why we automatically go to the negative, because again, when you have been in a situation, and I say this for now people who are the co-workers, the friends, and the family of people in a domestic violence that have come from a domestic violence situation, to just hear this. When you have come from that situation, so for years, someone has told you, as Jen mentioned, like all the negativity, they've told you you're useless. They have told you basically that the only person that's ever going to want to be with you is that person. They have knocked you down so far that it is so difficult for you to believe that your friends truly care and love you unconditionally, that you could be in a relationship with somebody that wouldn't possibly hurt you again or cheat on you, because why wouldn't they cheat on you? Like, you've been told for years that you're worthless. So why would somebody want to commit themselves to you? So all of these thoughts are ingrained because you've been told for years, over and over again. So that is a lot of work, but it does happen, and it can happen. And part of that work is doing this kind of work. It is taking control of your thoughts. It's acknowledging that your thoughts are being affected by your feelings, and which in turn, all of that is affecting your behavior, and and we work on that. And again, and it's working on, I know Jen and I absolutely talked about this in previous previous videos. It is really strong work on your self-esteem and your self-worth, because that needs to be worked on. So all of this stuff that we keep bringing to you guys really is all interconnected, because it is important that you, again, work on person's self-worth, because like I said, or same thing with family. So imagine, again, for years, you've had someone tell you that your parents don't love you, that they didn't really want you, whatever it may be. They didn't want you. They don't care about you. They don't care what's happening with you. They're not calling you. And even when you find out and realize that none of that's true, it's still in your head. You still question it, right? Like, Jen, it's still there. So you have to work to get those thoughts out of your head, that even though you know this person lied to you, there's still like that little bit in the back of your head. So again, you have an argument with mom, or you have an argument with a sibling, and then this sibling's not answering their phone, and now it's like, wait a second, are they not answering because I had a fight with this one? Now they're pissed at me because of this. Like, that paranoia and all of those thoughts, they come flooding back. So I'm going to wrap up and with 5 more things, but before I do that, I just want to also just wrap up in saying that there is absolute work that can be done on this. yes, we're talking about domestic violence, but I do truly believe, and I do this work with other people about reality testing, and it's very important because people do this all the time. They think the worst of everything. Um, and instead of stopping for a second and thinking what really is probably the reality of this situation, which can help really minimize a lot of feelings of anxiety, and start to help you again take control of your situation, take control of your thoughts. Um, but this work actually, I mean, all of this, it actually does work. And and again, and working on self-esteem and working on self-worth, all of this stuff, you know, I know that obviously being who I am and what I do for a living, I'm going to say I'm a huge proponent for counseling, but this is all the stuff that we do. And, you know, I hear a lot of people just talk about feeling out of control. And I hear a lot of people, again, especially right now, like there's a lot of stuff we don't have control of. So even if all you take away is that, again, that you have more control over things than you recognize and that you realize right now, sometimes it just takes taking a step back every day and reminding yourself, go through a list. Say, speaking of lists, just go through a list. What are the things I have control over? So I'll throw 5 more at you. How often you practice gratitude, my favorite thing to do every day. How you interpret situations, you have control over that. How you spend your money. I don't care if you say to me, well, I don't really want to pay my bills. You still have a choice in that. You don't have to pay your bills, but you also have a say in what you do with your money. Like, what are you spending it on? And the bills that you have control over budgeting. You have control over way more than that, than you think. So again, how you spend your money, what books you read, whether or not you ask for help.
So
And
that's
that's it.
so whether or not you ask for help, as far as I'm concerned, is like it's really huge. The other thing that I want to end with is that, I think that people think there's a quick fix to everything, right? A lot of men and women that I work with right now, going through this pandemic, getting out of domestic violence situations, there's no magic wand that gets thrown over you. There's no pixie dust, and then all of a sudden everything is better. That self-help that we talk about, that self-worth that we talk about, when you've been like literally emotionally and mentally beat down for so long, for me 13 years, that didn't come overnight. It didn't come even within the first 6 months. It took me a long time to really figure out who I was and who I wanted to be, to get to the point where I felt self-worth, because I didn't. Like just the other day, I was looking, one of those Facebook memories came up, right? And it was of 10 years ago. And I'm looking at this picture of myself, my sons, and my little niece. And I was like so thin, right? Like 10 times thinner than I am right now. And my first thought in my head was, I remember being told how much of a fat ass I was at that point in my life by the person that, supposedly loved me the most and was hurting me. But when I look at that, that took a lot for me to get to a point in life where I said, okay, well, that's not who I am. But I literally, the first thing that I thought of when I saw that picture was, wow, look how thin I was. And yet that entire time of my life, I was completely unhealthy, right? Because of how thin I was. And I was still listening to someone tell me every single day that my ass was too big and this was wrong with me and that was wrong with me. And today I look at the picture and I'm like, sheesh, if only I had that. If only I could work as hard to be, you know what I mean? It took a long time for me to be comfortable in my own skin, to know my self-worth, to know that that picture that he saw was not at all who I was. And getting help, knowing that you should get help, those are very important factors. Knowing your self-worth. I cannot tell you how many times I'm in a conversation with somebody that has just gotten out or is getting out of a domestic situation, and I say, well, how do you view yourself? What is your self-worth? And most of them can't even answer the question, because again, they've been beaten down emotionally and mentally for so long that they don't have an answer. Their only answer is the answer that has been told to them of how they feel and who they are. And it takes time. And if you don't allow yourself that time, the progression of moving forward is just going to take so much longer. You need to put that time aside. You need to realize who you are. You need to be one with all of your thoughts, like you've said, Sherry, like the things we can control and the things we can't control. That took me a long time to like wake up and realize. But once I did, I have all the things in life that I was told I would never have. I've
Mhm.
succeeded in doing things that I told I would never be able to
Yep.
succeed in once I left that house. But it wasn't overnight that I realized I could do these things. It was a progression of figuring out what I needed to do to get me to a point where once that positive started in my life, it was like a spiral of all positive. And I had lived with so much negative for so long that I didn't even understand it. And I thought it was abnormal. But in actuality, it's what I deserved. It's what I created for myself, for my children. And that is just so important, and
Mhm.
realizing that you can do it and the resources are there for you. Sherry, you're amazing. Everyone I send to you absolutely loves you. They're getting their leaps and bounds is what I see. And I appreciate that so much because that's why we're here. We're giving you glimpses of what Sherry does every single day and the amount of people that she helps every day. And, you know, today I learned a lot. So we're really hoping that you guys learned just as much. And as Sherry said earlier, any questions? You guys have been awesome with
Mhm.
the questions. We appreciate the feedback. We love knowing that this is making a difference because that's what we're doing it for. This is why we're here. This is why we're taking time out of our days to make a difference. And knowing that we are, and hearing your questions and concerns and being able to help more and more people, it's exactly why we're here.
Yep.
So send us your questions. Let us know how you're feeling about what we say. If you need any more contact, you just let us know. We're here for you.
Yep.
And you have any more?
No, that's it.
Okay.
That was good.
So
Thank you.
we hope you got a lot out of this, and we'll see
Yep.
you guys on the
Me
next
too.
one.
Yep.
Have a great day.
Yep.